Here's my audience. Okay. So imagine this. Your younger sibling passes their driving test without ever once driving on the highway. The next day, they're expected to merge into 70 miles per hour traffic on the Interstate 10. Unsure of what to do. This is a common problem today, and a lot of kids will have little to no experience in their driving journeys and will just be given their license without any approval of parents or driving school along those lines. So today I'm going to be talking about the current driving system is old and dangerous. To make driving safer, states need to require a more difficult driving test, adding in structured parental involvement during training. And there's two options in today's society of driving tests. There's either you go to the driving school or you have your parents teach you. And there's a lot of people cut corners when it comes to parents teaching them how to drive in this world. And so you're probably thinking, so what? Why do I care about driving tests? I already have my license. Well, car crashes are the #1 cause of teen deaths, according to the US CDC in 2023. And fixing our driving training could save so many lives. So today we're going to be jumping into 3 different topics, talking about why current driving tests fall short, why highway driving must be included, and why parental involvement is crucial in today's driving tests. So first, we're going to talk about current driving tests are not preparing drivers for real world conditions. And this is kind of talking about other things like highway driving or parallel parking, which they do cover, but it's very brief and not in as much depth as a lot of kids need to be experiencing. So most states do not require highway driving in the test. Some do, some don't, but if you find a normal state, they will have a very vague driving test and you just drive around the neighborhood, not really anything crazy, so you're kind of not getting the full experience. And a Volkswagen AG driving performance researcher, Dr. Wolfgang Grundler, said driving tests today are too concentrated on visual activity and insufficient in visual attention. And this is also talking about how people are docked in their driving tests for just looking the wrong way, driving through a neighborhood. These are not the things that people need to be focusing on. The things that people need to be focusing on are driving in high intense situations, which nobody even cares about. We're just driving through a neighborhood which is not preparing you for the real world. So Gundler and his co-author, Dr. Hans Strasberger, authored a +1 study in 2020 that showed how visual attention is a much better predicator of safe driving than standard vision tests. And this is also kind of just coming back to that point of these tests are not reflecting what actual driving is. It's just a filler for what the driving school wants to get done and just get it over with. But this is the future of America, driving without any experience, which is a really bad idea. So next we're going to jump into why highway driving is one of those essential skills that need to be tested. And this is a very common thing because, again, some states do require it, but they actually have very little restrictions on it. So for example, I took my driving test at a school nearby and it was super easy, very vague, nothing really happened. But you could also drive 45 minutes to Columbus and they will do a very strict driving test that you go on the highway, you have a very strict instructor with you. And so kind of talking about this, many states do not instruct for a test merging lane changing and response to high speed traffic. So kind of going along to what I did my test based off of, I did not have this high intense test. It was a very easy test. And so Dr. Yu Zhang is a transportation engineering professor at Tongji University, and she studied how drivers behave in complex merging zones. She's talking about drivers experience the greatest mental burden when merging into highways. This is also very common because there's some people that do not even drive on the highway just for the pure fact that they are afraid. And this also talks about, especially new drivers, according to her findings and her colleagues, they all have the same mental barrier. They are afraid to go on the highway because they are not prepared in these situations in driving school. And lastly, we're going to be talking about learning is reinforced by parental involvement and reinforced to form safer habits. Now, I know a ton of my friends who have their driving instructing journey was their parents just signed a form, gave it to the driving school, took a test, and it was super easy and they got their license. All of these people my parents prepared me for. They said, do not get in the car with these people because they are not safe. They do not know how to drive like you know how to drive. And it's true. Teens learn to drive mainly with parents, but the learning tends to be unstructured or not varied. This is basically saying they do not even teach them. They get in the car, drive for 5 minutes in a parking lot, and then say, okay, you're ready to get your license. Dr. Haley Scott, occupational therapist and professor at a large U.S. university, researches the relationship of cognitive abilities to driving safe. In an American Journal of Occupational Therapy in a 2025 article, this is recent, Scott and her co-authors found that formally guided home practice driving improves long driving ability and confidence. So driving with your parents for a long period of time improves your cognitive ability. So this helps you in the real world. It doesn't just say, okay, this is my sign-off sheet that I'm gonna give to my instructor that I can just take a test now and I can easily drive with no restrictions. Parents need to be cracking down on this, and it's not the parents' fault. It's the fault of the US government telling everyone, okay, these driving tests, they don't need to be that crazy. So kind of just going over what we were talking about, current driving tests are not reflective of real on-road driving. Adding highway testing and requiring formally guided parental involvement will better prepare the lives of other people, because in this world, nobody is prepared for driving unless they have a properly structured test, which we do not have, and correct education in the driving world. So we have to raise the standard for driving tests, bringing highway requirements and parents into this much closer. So you wouldn't want to leave. You wouldn't want to live. You wouldn't leave someone in the open water untrained. So why would you leave them in a 2-ton vehicle alone on the highway without any training? Thank you.